Hiya, I'd like to show you how you can take one stamp and use it in 3 completely different ways. So sometimes within our rare earth collections, we have stamps that are quite a lot smaller than our focal elements. And if you are a new crafter, you might think, well, what can I do with that stamp? But I want to show you that the smaller stamps have actually got so much versatility. So I'm going to show you how we can use this snowflake stamp, which is from the new Rare Earth Jolly Holly Christmas collection, to create a background, to create a circle frame, and also to create borders. So you can create your backgrounds for your cards, your focal elements and your embellishments as well, just from one really quite small stamp, which is brilliant because it gives us a lot of versatility within our collections. So when we get a collection, I think we tend to be drawn to the larger images to start with, but never overlook the smaller stamps within the sets. They're not just fillers, they're not just there to fill space. They've absolutely earned their right within that collection, and there is a lot of techniques you can do with your smaller stamps. So this is just a design that's got 3 snowflakes onto it. Now mine is a little bit mucky. It's clean but it's stained, so we're okay. I'm just mounting this onto an acrylic block. Now it is a clear polymer stamp, so although they're not sticky, they will cling to our acrylic block. If you are struggling to get them to cling to your acrylic block, it's probably just a little bit mucky, either the acrylic block itself or the stamp. So just give it a little wash in some warm soapy water, leave it to air dry naturally, and you should find that you're not having any issues with it sticking to your acrylic block. Now if you prefer, you can use your Rare Earth load and fold or any other stamping platform, but in this instance I'm just going to use an acrylic block. So first up, I'm going to show you how to create a background using this stamp. So I am going to take a black verse fine ink pad, and I've actually just got a scrap piece of card just to, you can see it really is a scrap piece of card, it's a little bit mucky, just to protect my surface. Black verse fine ink pad is going to give me a nice deep black crisp image. And it's going to pick up all those fine details that we've got within this stamp. So inking it up, I'm just going to stamp it out, just like so. Then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the 2nd generation image, which is where we stamp out for a 2nd time without re-inking. And as you can see, it gives us that grey, that faded image, which is really nice for backgrounds. So it looks almost like we've used 2 different colours of ink, even though we've only used the one. So if you've not got a lot of inks within your collection, 2nd generation stamping is a brilliant technique. So you can go into 3rd or even 4th generation stamping, depending how much ink you've got on your stamp. You'll just see if you can keep going or not. I tend to stick at 2, but if you want a really muted, faded effect, then definitely go for your 3rd generation. So I'm just stamping this all over this piece of card. Now this could be as large or as small as you like. I think mine's about 5 inches square roughly, but depending on your project, depends on the size that you cut your cardstock to. So you can see that I'm building up really quite quickly and easily a really lovely background on this piece of card. Now I could be using any colour of ink that I would like. I could be using any colour of card that I'd like. I could be using heat embossing, maybe using your embossing powders. Bring that into this technique as well. Something that I always do with this technique, and I definitely recommend, is stamp off the edge of the page. It gives it that more organic feel. It makes it flow a little bit better. If all your images are contained within the cardstock, i.e. they don't fall off the edge of the cardstock, then it can look almost a little bit artificial, if you know what I mean. It doesn't look as visually appealing, shall we say. So just fill in the piece until I'm entirely happy with it, and I'm happy with that now. So you can see we've created a really easy, quick background just using one stamp. So that's one way you can use your little filler stamps. How about creating a border? So a similar technique, I've just cut a strip of white cardstock. I'm going to take my piece out of the way for a minute. Inking up the stamp, again using VersaFine, but it could be any ink you desire. And I'm just going to stamp along this piece. So this is a border piece, but it could be as long as you like. Perhaps you're working on a scrapbook layout, perhaps you've got some lovely pictures from last Christmas out on wintry walks and you want to create a border for a 12 by 12 in scrapbook page, this stamp and this technique would be brilliant. So I'm just multiple stamping that all over this border piece. So it's just going to give a finishing touch to your projects, having borders that match your backgrounds. Everything ties in absolutely fantastically well. So just filling that space. If you wanted to go back in and stamp over the edges, you could, but I'm just going to leave that like that. So that's our borders created using this same stamp. If you wanted to do second generation stamping on your border as well, absolutely go for it. That's going to look brilliant as well. It's just another option. It's completely up to you. Finally, I want to show you how you can create your own frames. So taking a small stamp and making it look like it's a larger stamp. Absolutely brilliant because it's giving us more versatility. We're not having to buy a frame stamp and a smaller stamp. Just buy the one within the collection and do lots of different things with it. So what I've done is I've taken one of my tattered lace foundation circle dies. And I've just die cut a piece of white smooth cardstock in this circle design, and I've just split it into several sections that are roughly the same width of my stamp, and I've just marked that on using a pencil. We will go and rub that out later. It's just to help and guide us as to where to position our stamp. So just inking up, again using VersaFine. We're just going to go along and create this border. So I'm going roughly within the middle of those two markings, and those markings are just guiding us as to where to stamp so that we've got even spacing on this border. So we've not had them quite close and then we get towards the end and there's not quite enough space to fit another one into there. It's going to allow us to get that really professional finished look to our projects. And now the aim is to create an effect as if this is completely seamless, so you wouldn't think that it's a separate stamp, a cluster of 3 snowflakes that's been multiple stamped. We want to create the illusion that it's one complete circular stamp. Now I am using a circle here, but you could be using any shape you like. Perhaps you've got lots of nesting dies within your collection. Hexagons would look fantastic, be a little bit different, maybe ovals. Maybe you've got a scan and cut and you've got lots of basic shapes on there. You could be cutting your basic shapes out using your scan and cut and doing this exact same technique. Maybe you've not got dies at all and you're new to stamping. That's absolutely fine. Just use your trimmer or your guillotine or even just a pair of scissors and do the same technique with squares or rectangles. It's still going to look fantastic. So you don't have to be an experienced crafter with a large craft stash to create lovely effects like this. So inking up for the final time, just to fill in that gap at the top to create that finished effect. So what you can see now is we've created this frame. So I'd go back in a minute or so once this ink has dried and just rub out the pencil lines because the recipient of the card doesn't need to know our workings. Maybe add a sentiment into there. And that would be your finished frame. So you can see I've taken one small stamp with just 3 snowflakes on it, and we've seen 3 very different ways that we can use it. So we can create our backgrounds, we can use our second generation stamping while we're doing that as well. We can create our circular frames or any other shape of course, and we can create our backgrounds. We could add these all to a card together or completely separate if we would like, and create lots of different effects with just one stamp, and think you could be doing this with any stamp in your collection. Just shows you a few different ways you can work with your stamps.